For 22 days, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has been dominating headlines. We have been getting you updates from on the ground. But this war has not just changed the lives of Ukrainians, it has far-reaching implications. Cut to what happened before the Russian invasion started. World leaders tried to play peacemakers, and among them was the French president, Emmanuel Macron. Until last year, the presidential race was supposed to be a tight battle. President Macron was trailing. Polls suggested that the far-right candidate Marine Le Pen might even win the first-round vote. But the war in Ukraine changed everything for the French president. Less than a month ahead of those polls, Macron's position looks formidable. He is 12 points ahead of Marine Le Pen, his closest rival in the elections. Macron's popularity has soared, especially because of the war. Since the very beginning, Macron has been at the center of the conflict, trying to broker peace, trying to play peacemaker, talking to both Russian and Ukrainian sides, and prioritizing Europe's security and concerns. As for his competitors, they have a particular challenge. They cannot criticize the president's actions because that may end up looking unpatriotic. Neither can they drag the electoral agenda back to domestic issues. So who exactly are the key players in this presidential battle? The first is obviously Emmanuel Macron. The incumbent is staking his claim for a second term. Macron became France's youngest president in 2017. He runs a centrist political movement to challenge traditional parties, protege of former President François Hollande. Macron has had to face problems to push his controversial reforms. In 2018, he was forced to scrap a proposed fuel tax after weeks of Yellow Vest protests. Currently, Macron has a strong chance of winning. He is way ahead of all his rivals in the election, with many looking at him as a global statesman.
This morning, I had to speak to President Putin at length and then to President Zelensky to try to act, and at the same time, I must. I also wanted, with great humility and lucidity, to submit my candidacy to the French people.
The second key player is Marine Le Pen. She is the leader of France's far-right National Rally, a party that her father, Jean-Marie Le Pen, founded in the early 1970s. The then National Front was considered to be a racist and anti-Semitic party, but Marine Le Pen excluded her own father from the party in 2015. She even distanced herself from her father's views, changing the branding of the party and its ideals. Le Pen calls the party a protector of French values. She has a strong anti-immigrant, anti-European Union message. But what got her in trouble was her close link to Vladimir Putin. France's Marine Le Pen even highlighted her meeting with Putin on election leaflets. They were printed ahead of the war and feature Putin shaking hands with Le Pen. But with public opinion being overwhelmingly against the Russian president, she has been seeking to distance herself from the leader. In fact, Marine Le Pen says that Putin is not the one who received her in Moscow in 2017. The case is somewhat similar with far-right challenger Eric Zemmour. He burst onto the political scene in 2021, slamming both immigration and Islam. He is even more nationalistic than Le Pen. He had called for a ban on all first names that are not French. In 2018, he even said that he dreamt of quote-unquote French Putin. He is not a very likable personality in French politics. Look at the visuals on your screen. He even got egged during the presidential campaign. The stakes are particularly high for both Le Pen and Zemmour this time around. Opinion polls showing they could scoop about a third of the votes. The other key players include Anne Hidalgo. Jean-Luc is the strongest candidate on the left. He is a staunch critic of Emmanuel Macron and has been a prominent supporter of the Yellow Vest demonstrations. On the other hand, Anne Hidalgo is the current mayor of Paris. The 62-year-old won a second term in 2020. She has called for a complete reform of education and the health systems. And she also plans to boost wages in France. The French presidential elections are known for their unpredictability, but for the last few months, the polls signal at only one likely outcome, a repeat of the 2017 elections. Macron winning the polls, but with a narrower margin. The French president's attempts to broker peace may have failed, but when it comes to the elections, it looks like he is standing strong. On the broadcast with us is journalist Lisa Louis from Paris to help us better understand the impact of the Ukraine war on the French presidential battle. What is your assessment of these numbers and the impact that this conflict might be having on the French presidential battle?
Well, first of all, the impact of the Ukrainian war is that there's practically no presidential campaign happening here in France. I mean, these candidates are holding meetings, but no one is really paying attention. And as you said beforehand, the war has given the opportunity to Emmanuel Macron, the current president, to be a statesman, to be perceived as someone who is playing a role on an international level. And many people here feel that they'd rather go with someone they know than they would vote in someone new who they don't know how he or she would react facing Putin in this international conflict.
Emmanuel Macron tried to play peacemaker but did not succeed. So why do you think the war has changed or impacted his popularity on the ground?
Emmanuel Macron has, obviously, as you said, he's tried to be a negotiator between the two sides. He's been trying to prevent the war. He's been on the phone numerous times with the Ukrainian President Zelensky and the Russian President Putin. And although he did not succeed in preventing this war, I don't think anyone is blaming him for trying. And also he said that he could feel how Putin had changed over the years, that President Putin got more and more isolated over the phone when Emmanuel Macron talked to him. And although, as I said, he did not prevent this war from happening, I think many people feel that he's at least trying to play the role of an international leader. And he is being taken seriously, at least by his European counterparts. And also, when it comes to that, over the past few years, he's been pushing for a reform of the European Union, for the European Union to play a stronger role when it comes to international defense. And that, at least, seems to be taken more seriously by European partners. And then they will now be talking about a European defense program for all European member states.
What are the key issues that have dominated this electoral discourse so far? And has that also changed when you compare the situation before the war and now?
Well, the thing is, when you look at different polls, the most important topic for the French seems to be purchasing power, the money they have in their pockets and how they will make ends meet. However, when you look at the presidential campaign, there's been a lot of talk about immigration, really, especially from the far-right candidates, Eric Zemmour, Marine Le Pen, but also the centre-right candidate, Valérie Pécresse. They have been adamant that they want to stop, that they want to slow down immigration. And the campaign has very much focused on that. Obviously, with the war, this has somehow changed because now there will be Ukrainian refugees coming to France. Some of them have already arrived here, and it's very difficult to say we will not take them in. So the view has changed. France is becoming a more welcoming country, at least at this very moment. And many people are really looking eastwards and looking at that war and thinking of that war when they think of the upcoming presidential elections.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.